Hello YouTube, this is Let's Talk Horror and welcome back to another video. Okay guys, so today I'm going to be reviewing Welcome to Derry episode 2, which is titled The Thing in the Dark. And if you didn't see my review for the first episode, first of all, I'd recommend that you go check that out. But to sum up, I came away very, very happy with what I saw out of episode 1. I had high expectations for this show, and episode 1 exceeded even those high expectations. Especially, I loved the way they subverted expectations with the way they ended episode 1, how brutal, how bloody, how mean it is. I couldn't have been more excited. I couldn't wait for episode 2, especially the way they ended episode 1. Had this 5-day wait for episode 2 feel like 5 months or 5 years. That's how excited I was. It's been a while since a TV show has had a wait like that feel so long, but yeah, here we are at episode 2, and this one I'll say is definitely slower. I'm just going to come out and say it. It's definitely slower. It's definitely a bit more about world building. You know, it's not as shocking. It doesn't go for the shock value as much, but honestly, I think that's a good thing. I'm glad they kind of slowed it down a little bit and, you know, focused on world building and character building and stuff like that. And if anything, I enjoyed this episode maybe just as much, if not a little bit more. So with that said, let's get into my review for Welcome to Derry episode 2. Okay, but one thing I liked about this episode is I think it did a better job balancing the two stories, a little bit better of a job of balancing the two stories, both the military story and the kids story. Let's start with the kids. I liked what they did there. A lot of it is the aftermath of what happened at the movie theater, how Lily is reacting to it, how Ronnie is reacting to it, this building tension and feud between them. I enjoyed that. Last week, it felt more focused on Lily. That was the character we were following. We found out more about her backstory in episode 1. In episode 2, it felt more like it was focused on Ronnie. This one was really fleshing out that character and her life and what she's dealing with. We come to find out that, obviously, I mean, being a black child in Derry in the 1960s is tough. But we also come to find out through an interaction with Pennywise that her mother died during childbirth with her. And that was an interesting way to go. And that was an interesting addition to her backstory. Like, I haven't really thought about it, but yeah, I could definitely see a kid, especially in that day and age, dealing with some trauma or more importantly, some guilt of their parent passing away during childbirth with them. I could see, you know, a person dealing with some underlying issues with that. So I thought that was interesting. I thought that added to her character. But on top of that, now the whole town is out to get her dad. The Derry Police Department is out to get her dad. I think they suspected her father in the case of Maddie from episode 1, but now they are really suspicious of him for what happened at the movie theater. And of course, it doesn't help that he's black in a predominantly white town. And as we all know, the times of the 1960s. So I enjoyed finding more out about her character, and I'm really connected to that character. And I enjoyed her rivalry, the two sides of that coin. You have Lily on one side, who I guess was interviewed by the police, and she said, you know, I went to them and I told her that 100% your dad wasn't there. Your dad wasn't responsible for this, but I couldn't tell them I saw because they'll send me back to the loony bin. As we learned about in episode 1, that Lily went up to an insane asylum following the death of her father. Ronnie is like, no, you have to tell them. You have to do everything in your power to get them off. They are coming after my dad. They are looking for anything they can to pin it on him. Please do everything in your power to make this right, to make it known that this wasn't him. And I sympathized with both of them, and I didn't know who to really root for because I understood where they were both coming from. They were both looking out for themselves, but at the same time, you know, I understood where they were both coming from. And the way the episode ends, where it kind of doesn't matter. They both get the worst of it. You know, the worst case scenario for both girls kind of happens, where Lily gets sent to Juniper Hill, and now the police are not only firmly on the tail of Ronnie's father, but he's locked up and he's, you know, accused of killing these kids. And it was interesting and it was heartbreaking to see. So overall, I really liked that. I really liked their relationship, their kind of love or hate relationship here, that kind of friendship that's there, but there's still this tension and still these two kids that are looking out for their own interest. And I enjoyed that. So as far as the kids go, that was the main thing, that tension and that back and forth between Lily and Ronnie. That was what I enjoyed about that episode, and finding more out about Ronnie as a character was enjoyable to see. Okay, and then on the other end of that story, we get more developments with the military base in Derry. What exactly is going on there? In fact, we know exactly what the military base is doing in Derry at this point, and we find out more about Leroy Hanlon's home life. I enjoyed all that. I enjoyed fleshing out this character as well. We find out that on the military base, he is just this very orderly guy who, hey, even though I don't like this person, he always does the right things. He always tries to follow the rules. We come to find out that the attack on Leroy Hanlon in his room near the end of episode 1 that we thought was by some Soviet spies was really initially thought to be planned by a racist soldier that gets kind of framed and blamed. And when it comes to find out this racist soldier couldn't have done it, it later comes out that actually his general planned the whole thing to kind of test him, and causes some tension happen between those two. I liked that whole thing. I liked how that developed. I'm really beginning to like Leroy as a character on the military base. And we also find out more about his home life. We get introduced to Will Hanlon, Mike Hanlon's father. So that's interesting. And we get to learn more about him as a kid, and, kind of see that he loves his father and his father loves him, but there's lack of understanding there, kind of a rift there. We see the same thing with Leroy and Charlotte, that they love each other. They're pretty happily married. It's a happy family for the most part, but there's some tension there. There's some problems there. It's kind of implied that Charlotte is the more outspoken one when it comes to like social issues, where Leroy, kind of during his home life is like, hey, I just want to spend time with my family and not deal with all that. And Charlotte is the one who will actually speak out, and she feels it's necessary. And she's the one who starts to see very early on that something isn't right with Derry. There's something kind of wrong here. And I liked her character. I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm interested to see how this family dynamic plays out. And yeah, again, a little bit of a slower pace, but we do find out more about the military, and I'm glad we got more to chew on with that. And overall, yeah, I'm enjoying what they're giving us with Leroy Hanlon and his family. Okay, but on the other end of the military story in this episode, we finally find out what Dick Halloran is doing in Derry. We finally kind of find out what role he's going to be playing, at least here in the early part of the season. I enjoyed what we got from him, and I'm glad that we've gotten that character and that story off the ground, because the truth is, one of the more surprising parts of episode 1, for as big of an announcement as it kind of was, that Dick Halloran was going to be a major character in this show, and he's played by Chris Chalk. He wasn't given that much to do. And as big as that is, and as big of a character as he is in the Stephen King universe, and as big of a deal as it kind of is that they are acknowledging that these two major Stephen King stories are connected on screen and, exist in the same universe on screen. Dick Halloran, I don't even think, had a line of dialogue in that first episode. He was completely quiet. He, barely got any screen time. It was all about Leroy Hanlon. Well, here we come to find out that he is, in Derry because the military knows about his ability to shine. They know about that, and he has used that and is using that to help them find a weapon buried underneath Derry that can give them a leg up in the Cold War, and that they can use in the Cold War. And in return, he gets special privileges. He's allowed to leave the Air Force base. He's allowed to go out drinking with his buddies. And we see that. And we see that he doesn't quite have control over it. Like, there's some belief that he's, abusing his privileges. And there's a growing belief, as we see in one scene, that, maybe he's just taking him on a ride. But by the end of the episode, we find that out not to be true. Overall, it was good that they planted the seeds this episode. Hopefully we get more of his character and they really start to dig into that story a little bit more. The whole thing about the military wanting to use what they call is that this weapon that, kind of feeds off fear and kills people through fear, as they say in this episode. So pretty much what they're looking for is Pennywise, that the military is in Derry because they They found out that Pennywise is beneath Derry, and they view him as a weapon they can use in the Cold War. That, to me, is going to be the make or break, probably, element of the season, depending how they go about it. If they handle it really well, maybe that'll be a part of the season that I really love. And if they botch it, I can see it being kind of jumping the shark, being a little bit over the top. But right now I'm on board with it. So overall, yeah, the military story I think was a bit better. They definitely did a good job fleshing that out. And I think they did a good job fleshing Dick Halloran's story out as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing where he's going to go as well. Okay, but just because I've said that this episode was more about, character building, world building, was a little bit more of a slow burn, we still did get some pretty fucked up Pennywise interactions with Lily and Ronnie, and especially Ronnie's interaction with Pennywise was absolutely fucked up. Remember, she was not in the theater directly when what happened last week went down. So this is her first interaction with Pennywise directly. And as I said, in it, we find out that Ronnie's mother died during childbirth with Ronnie, and Pennywise kind of uses that trauma and that guilt in some way to get to her. And the whole scene was just great, where we pretty much see her fucking put back in the womb and rebirthed. He uses her mother to kind of get into her head and torture her. And I thought it was really fucked up, really scary. A lot of good practical effects in that scene. The CGI wasn't as bothersome. It wasn't as noticeable as well. So that's a good thing. And not only that, we see the control that Pennywise has over this town in this episode. That's what I really enjoyed as well. That we see the way that he kind of can influence adults from anywhere from the apathy they kind of have and the kind of blinders they have to the violence in this town, to like bullies, beating a kid up on the street and nobody wanting to do anything. And in fact, Charlotte looking like the crazy one for stepping in, to even, Clint Bowers interviewing Lily, and he clearly pressures her and manipulates her with that whole thing of like, well, the story you're kind of telling is crazy, and everyone understands that you've been through a lot, but you've been to Juniper Hill, and we may have to send you back there because this is just out there. Or, look, let me rephrase this. And he asked the question of, well, are you positively 100% sure that Ronnie's father wasn't there that night? And she has no choice but to answer yes. And you feel just so bad for this kid, because he pretty much says, look, it's either you give me the answer I want to hear, or you're going back to Juniper Hill. And when he asked the question, you see that sly little smile on Clint Bowers' face. And you could just tell that, unconsciously Pennywise has control over this person, and he has control and he has influence over the entire town of Derry. And that's something that, that they touched upon a little bit in the movies that I really was hoping would be explored further here. And it really does seem like they're going to be exploring it further here. So I'm excited to see that. So even though this was a little bit of a slower episode this week, even though we didn't quite get the shock value of last week, we still did get some great Pennywise interactions. Yeah, it was still very memorable and still very fucked up. And if you had any doubts that this show was going to be toned back, or any concerns that this show was going to be toned back because of it going to TV, don't be concerned anymore, because I'll even say it, guys, I think this show has a colder, meaner edge to it than the movies so far. I think it has a colder, meaner edge to it. Now, look, the movies were telling the story of the Losers Club. There's kind of a natural optimism and a natural hope with the story of the Losers Club. I understand that. And so that colder, meaner edge, if anything, kind of fits with this story more. But my point is like, no, they're not holding anything back. I mean, they're clearly pushing the envelope even more. So that's one of the conclusions I could say, is that if anything, this show is a little bit colder, a little bit meaner, a little bit nastier, and just pushing the envelope a little bit more with its scares. I love to see that, man. I love to see that. So any concerns you had, or you may have had, should be gone by now, or at least my concerns are gone by now, or any concerns I had. And also, I'm just going to say, I know some also had concerns that, we're not going to see Pennywise in clown form until later in the season. And I can say through 2 weeks, that's not bothering me in the slightest. It's giving us an opportunity to see different Pennywise variants, and it's making the wait for Bill Skarsgård and the clown version of Pennywise feel bigger. And it's going to make his arrival as the clown version of Pennywise seem like a bigger deal. So I said that in my video last week. I just wanted to say it here. So far, I'm really enjoying what they're doing it. And the fact that we're not getting the clown version of Pennywise yet has not bothered me one bit. So I just wanted to say that. Okay, but if there's one thing that has me a little bit concerned through these first 2 episodes, the CGI this week actually wasn't bad. I actually thought it was an improvement, especially in the scene between Pennywise and Ronnie. They had a lot of good practical effects, and watching the behind the scenes stuff after the episode ended, they had a lot of pretty solid practical effects in that scene. So that didn't bother me that much at all. There's quite a bit of CGI in the Pennywise interaction between Lily and Pennywise this week, but overall, I thought that scene was really intense. A lot of kind of slow burn and build up to that scene was nice. And the payoff was okay as well. The CGI didn't bother me quite as much this week as it did last week. The one kind of story thread that I'm a little bit iffy on, if not kind of tepidly disliking, is the character of Marge and her kind of dilemma of whether to stay loyal to Lily or climb the social ladder. It's easily the least interesting part of the season so far for me. I don't really love her character. Her character as of right now is somewhat unlikable. And it's a story plot and a story thread that, frankly, I just don't find that interesting. I'm just not as captivated as with everything that's going on with Lily by herself as a character and the kind of tragic way that she ends episode 2, or Ronnie as a character, or even Will as a character from what we have seen. It just doesn't feel as important as whatever else is going on, even though it's getting a fair amount of the spotlight. So I'm not crazy about that. As far as the new character, Rich, that was introduced in episode 2, I don't know what to make of him yet. I feel like by the end of episode 3, I'm really going to have a firmer grasp on whether I really like that character or whether I really don't like or even hate that character. Hopefully not, but I would like to see his character get more of a spotlight in episode 3. I don't really know what to make of his character as of yet, but yeah, it seems like they fully introduced the new Losers Club after the bait and switch last week. And as far as it being led by Lily and Ronnie, those 2 characters I'm really liking and I'm really invested in. So far, I'm going to say everything with the kids right now, I'm leaning positive on, even though I don't know what to really make of Richie or Rich, whatever his name is. And I don't really love the character of Marge here and her story at the moment. But that's really the one thing that's kind of a little iffy for me through these first 2 weeks and these first 2 episodes. But okay, we got our official opening title sequence of Welcome to Derry, and I think it's cool. Again, it feels like it exists within the Muschietti universe, but it differentiates itself and gives the show its own unique flavor. It's kind of like an animated sequence that shows the different Pennywise cycles and shows like the Ironworks explosion, shows the Bradley Gang massacre. It doesn't show the fire. I don't think it showed the fire at the Black Spot in the opening title sequence, but overall, the animation looks great. I love how it kind of feels like a Derry postcard or like an old-fashioned postcard. It feels very 1960s as well. I'm loving everything about the new opening. The song fits perfectly as well. It's from 1956. I'd never heard it before this, but it's very catchy and it's been stuck in my head quite a bit today. If you read more about it and you listen to the lyrics, it's all about like putting on a smile and kind of faking happiness to bury your problems. And that honestly fits perfect with the storyline of it and Derry in some ways. So I did like the opening title sequence. It's up on YouTube, or you can just go watch the episode as well. I thought it was a great opening title sequence, and it's another great addition to this show. So there you go. But okay, guys, if you can't tell, I once again really enjoyed this episode. It didn't have the shock value of the first one. It took more of a slow burn approach. It was more about fleshing out these characters and fleshing out this world, but I think they did a good job of it. I actually think this episode did a little bit of a better job balancing the two stories, both the military angle and then the new group of kids we are following. I'm interested to see where it goes. But overall, yeah, I still enjoyed this episode. I'm still very much intrigued where they're going to take everything. Hopefully they put more focus on Dick Halloran. And the only thing that's really bothering me through 2 weeks is the Marge storyline a bit. So overall, yeah, still very much invested, still fully on board for the ride. So what did you think of Welcome to Derry episode 2, guys? Did you love this episode like I did? Have you loved the show so far like I have for the most part? Or have you been disappointed? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you guys later. Okay, take care.